Hi, I'm Claire and I'm the research manager for Naturehood, and I've just finished creating my first ever mini ponds. And I've created two using oak barrels and one here using this dilapidated old fountain that I got for free because it's full of cracks. And the first thing I had to do with all of these was make sure they were watertight. This freebie was no problem, it's always held water. However, these two didn't. So being a little impatient, I wanted a quick solution because I wanted to get planting, I wanted to get checking out all the wildlife in my pond. So I tried aquarium sealant, and I tried aquarium sealant because it also doesn't leach into the pond. So over time, any organisms that were in there were going to be fine. They weren't going to get damaged by chemicals leaching from the sealant. Unfortunately, the sealant didn't do the job. It kept leaking, and so I moved on to the tried and tested method that just takes a while, which is soaking the barrels. And so because this back one, I was lucky, it held about 5 inches of water. This one wouldn't hold a bean. I put this one inside that one, filled it with some bricks, filled it with water, and it leveled out to about 5 inches. And then I kept adding water every week until the barrels held water almost to the top. And the reason it does that is because as the water is sitting in the barrel, it soaks into the wood and the wood swells. And as the wood swells, it closes the gaps and then it becomes watertight. And so that's how I made it watertight. It was actually quite fun, surprisingly, I thought, to watch the life that actually developed quite quickly in the pond, despite there being no foliage, nothing but a couple of just bricks chucked in there. And so what we had in there was initially we had some hoverfly larvae, and then we had some little wiggly worms as well, and then more and more and more and more and more mosquito larvae. And it did just become a mosquito larva breeding ground. I mean, that's not surprising, stagnant water, what did I expect? Now I don't mind so much, I don't really react to mosquito bites, I'm really lucky in that way. And also I knew that these mosquitoes, when they hatch, are providing so much food to our local birds. And I have some gorgeous swifts that are actually flying above my head right now. And they're here hunting in the local vicinity. So the mosquitoes are going to be great food for them. So yeah, I didn't mind so much all the mosquito larvae. But it meant the water was really stagnant and smelly. And so today, when it was time to make my ponds, I had to get rid of that water. So I got rid of it and I had these barrels empty. I moved them to the right positions because they are too heavy to move once they're full of water. And then I actually the first thing I did was I arranged where my plants were going to go. And I did this when the barrels were empty because I needed to place the plants on different levels and work out the heights that I wanted them to be. And I need to do that because most of the plants in these ponds are called marginals, and that means that they live at the water's edge. And what they want is they want their roots completely covered in water, but they want all of their foliage coming out of the water. And so I've sat most of these on plant pots, on plastic plant pots. So super cheap. I actually got all of mine free from my parents and from plants that that have outgrown their pots. And I've just sat them on those. And again, plastic is not going to leach into the water. It's an inert substance, so it should be fine for any wildlife. And all of the plants are actually planted in plastic pots as well. And the plastic pots have little holes in it that the water goes into. So it's a great way of reusing your plastic pots and not throwing it away. And the only plant I have in here that isn't a marginal is this gorgeous water poppy here, which the flower's not really out right now, so you can't really see it, but it's yellow, and it's like a water lily. It floats on the surface, and it's great for lots of insects to lay their eggs on, and it just looks really pretty. And that plant, that can be as deep as I like. It will just grow from it's evolved to grow from the bottom of the ponds all the way up to the surface and then just float on the surface. So I did get one floating plant that didn't need to be on a barrel. And so once I positioned where I wanted all of my plants to be, my next job was to fill it with water. Now, the ideal water source that you're going to use is rainwater. Unfortunately, I didn't have rainwater. I have a water butt, but it hasn't rained enough since I got it, so I went for the next best, which is tap water that I'd let sit for 5 days. And I let it sit for 5 days to a week, just so that all the chlorine could evaporate off, all the chemicals get a chance to evaporate off, and the water would then be good and safe for plants and any wildlife that's in the pond. And when I filled it, I filled it with a watering can. Now you can use a hose, I just don't have a hose, I don't have easy access to water here. So I used a watering can, just so you control the flow of the water into the pond. Now, the plants I've chosen are all native plants. I'm a huge fan of using natives as much as I can, because they've evolved this climate, they've evolved this landscape, so they're just most likely to be bulletproof. So I love that about natives. Also, all of our pollinators and our other insects and our birds have evolved with these sorts of plants, with our native plants. And so if you want to have the best chance of just choosing the right plants for wildlife in this country, go native. So what I've got here is at the back, I've got two yellow flag lilies, two yellow flag irises, and they will look gorgeous when they flower. And they're adding some nice height there. And emergent plants coming out of the water are really useful, again, for wildlife. So if you're walking past a pond or a lake or river, and you see lots of damselflies flying around, have a look on the stems of plants that are emergent, like those irises, and you might well see little sort of shells of insects. So, and that's often the last stage of a damselfly larva or a dragonfly larva that's crawled its way up onto the stems, and then the adult insect has emerged, leaving that final outer skeleton behind. So there you'll see the last phase of the juvenile. And so I've got some of those emerging from water, and next to it, also emerging, I've got some lovely chives. Now chives, this is going to be a purple flower, great again for our pollinators, and also I can eat it, so always happy with that. We've got lots of water forget-me-not in all of the ponds. I did go a bit OTT with my plants this time. I didn't really know how many to choose, and I went a bit OTT. And water forget-me-not is certainly one that I ordered just a bit more than I thought I had of them. But I love water forget-me-nots. They are one of my favourite flowers. They have been since I was a child, so there was no way I was going to have a pond that didn't have water forget-me-nots in it. We've got here some bogbean, and bogbean has a beautiful white flower. That's why I chose this one. And all the anthers and stamens are coming out of the middle of that flower. It looks a bit like feathers just like popping out. So that's a really attractive flower. We've also got here it's called creeping jenny. And I chose creeping jenny. It's got a really pretty buttercup yellow flower. And it does exactly what it says on tin. It's going to creep over the edge of all of these planters. So I've got some here, I've got some there, and it's going to creep over the edge. And what I'm hoping it's going to do over time is connect all of these ponds together, all of these mini ponds together. And that's going to look really pretty when it flowers, but also just lovely having foliage just creeping down. Now, I don't actually expect to have any walking wildlife in here. I live in a rented space, and my garden is walls on all sides, so I can't create any wildlife passageways, unfortunately. So we're not expecting anything that can walk to end up using this pond. But still, so the creeping jenny at this stage is mostly decorative, but it's also why I chose to make tub mini ponds, so that when I move house I can take them with me, and then hopefully I'll have a space that maybe I can have these in a bigger pond. That would be amazing. But also just a space that wildlife can access, like frogs and newts, and then these could be a bit useful for those too. So okay, it's not there yet, but we're not even in close to that situation. I'm living here for the foreseeable future, but this will help start connecting up these bits of the pond. I've also got in here this lovely purple marsh toad. I think that's what it's called. I always forget. Let me just check. Marshlock. This gorgeous purple marshlock. And I chose this because it's got a really nice red flower, and I had a lot of yellow in this pond, and the water forget-me-nots are blue. I've got a little bit of white, a little bit of purple over there, but basically it was yellow everywhere. And so we thought we needed a bit of a different colour, so we chose the purple marshlock. And I love the leaves on here. It's the most different plant of all of them that I've got here. It's got these serrated leaves, a red stem, really nice pop of colour, even though it's not currently flowering, even though nothing here is really currently flowering. Now, the last things I added was I added a bit of watercress from the local supermarket. And the watercress I got, I was really lucky. It actually has some roots already. And the rest of it's going to be my dinner. So, but the watercress is to oxygenate, it's to provide some oxygenated sauce, and it's super cheap. And the other thing I went and got was from a friend's pond, I got some pondweed. And again, pondweed is really important to oxygenate the water and make it a nice habitat for anything that's living in there. And I also nicked a bit of his pond water so that I could seed this pond with things like Daphnia, and I actually saw one mayfly larva in there as well, so that's quite exciting. Hopefully it will do okay in here. Yeah, so just to seed the pond with a bit of wildlife, because all of these things are going to help start those natural processes that keep the pond clean, aerated and fresh. And so that's my pond. Oh wait, I don't know, I did tell you about the bog bean. So this is my pond. These are my mini ponds, and I'm excited to see how they develop. They're still looking quite new. I've got one job this weekend. It's to cut down the trays in this a little bit more, the plant pots in this, because and just make sure the plants are sitting a little lower in the water, because this didn't fill up with the water quite as high as I was expecting. But that's really it. And then it's just keeping it topped up. That's going to be my hardest job, because all of these are standing water. There's no so there's going to be a lot of evaporation. This one particularly is going to evaporate a lot, so collecting as much rainwater as I can every winter to make sure that, well, and in the summer when it rains, to use as much rainwater as possible, but compensating that with tap water that's been allowed to sit and dechlorinate. I really don't want to be adding fresh tap water in there, always tap water that's dechlorinated. And yeah, these are my ponds. So thanks for joining me. Let me know if you have any suggestions for me on ways I could improve them, or more things I could do, or if you have any questions on how I did it or anything like that. Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you.